Right. So I was looking for some ideas from the Sfat Emet, one of the famous Gerer Rebbes on Pesach, and I came across this rather extraordinary little passage in which he says that ideally a special relationship should really exist between Jews and Arabs, because Ishmael, the ancestor of the Arabs, served as a bridge between Israel and the rest of the world, helping to serve the knowledge of God among the masses of the people. And he goes on to explain the relationship, and he says that Ishmael was born before Abraham was circumcised, and therefore he constitutes an intermediary between the Jewish nation who are born after he's circumcised and the rest of the world who are uncircumcised, the Jewish nation are born after he's circumcised and the rest of the world who are uncircumcised. In that respect, Ishmael is a kind of intermediary, and his task would really have been, because as it happens, anybody who is familiar with Islam will know how very, very similar many of their practices are and how close they are in terms of their identity with Judaism. Every time I have a haircut with my barber, who's a devout Muslim, we have these discussions and we discover a lot of the commonalities, and I always tell him to be very careful, because he becomes quite passionate about these discoveries, and I always tell him, just be careful with the scalpel, please, because it's my ears that you're playing with. At any rate, so this rather extraordinary idea that Ishmael could actually have been an intermediary. Instead of being an enemy, there would have been an intermediary, and their task would have been to take Jewish, because they are so numerous, to take some of the principles of monotheism and of Judaism, and of course, in their own particular way, through to the wider world. And therefore, Ishmael is described in the Torah as a pera Adam, meaning to say that he has these two aspects to it. The word pera means wild, a capacity for wildness and to lose the plot completely. On the other hand, he also has the capacity to be an Adam, which is a term which is always designates the highest element of humanness, the godly part of humanness. And there are these two, there's this dichotomy within Ishmael itself. Sadly, for many centuries now, and particularly in our own century, we haven't seen them play this role, but it's rather fascinating to think that there could actually have been a different model for humanity with a positive role, positive relationships. Maybe one sees a little bit of this beginning to happen in UAE, or you're actually seeing some amazing stuff going on in terms of the connection between Islam and Judaism in their practices and the acceptance of Jewish practices as Israelis or Orthodox Israelis start to open these kosher facilities in Dubai, etc. So there's some really interesting things happening over here, and it's just a little taste of what could happen if there was a real relationship between Israel and the Arab nations. At any rate, I thought that was particularly interesting. Rabbi Hanania especially